transparency could not cure, along with the realization or re-realization that journalism is still about the story. Newspaper owners and network executives and Wall Street financiers must be on it as well. They too must remember that Thomas Jefferson said, "Our democratic society is dependent on an informed electorate," and that means being dependent on us, the journalists, to report the information from which opinions and informed votes flow. It may also mean leading the huge profits to the search engines, as well as the shouting to the shouters and the entertaining to the clowns. And that brings me far, far away from the shouters and the clowns to our little program on public television called the News Hour. I'm sure that every one of you watches it. If not on the web, on your iPod. If not on television. Let me say a few things about us in the program. First and foremost, please know that we have been on the air for 32 years. And it did begin, as Lorraine said, the worst title in the history of television. Bob Schenken was there when it started. It was called the Robert McNeil Report. Can you imagine the worst title for a television program? I got a much better title. My mother interceded. We came to McNeil Lehrer Report after 6 months. We did one story a night for 30 minutes. I entertained some of the folks at the Headliners Club the other day. Some of the awful examples we had of 30-minute stories. I will not repeat that except to say, trust me, we made a lot of mistakes. We did 30 minutes comparing naturally grown tomatoes with unnaturally grown tomatoes. We spent 30 minutes on naturally made potato chips versus unnaturally made potato chips. Don't ask me why we did that. We just did it. We did 30 minutes on some Portuguese elections that not even the Portuguese cared about. We did 30 minutes on the drying up of the, this one I didn't tell the Headliners folks about. We did a story about the drying up of the Ulagala Aquifer, you know, where all that water is in the western part of the United States. It's going to dry up. And we did a big setup on it. We were all set to do 30 minutes, and then we did this is the crisis. It's almost like an oil shortage. It's comparable to an oil shortage. The water people, the water riots. The Ulagala Aquifer is, low. Fortunately, it went to McNeil after the setup, and he went from the setup to the governor of Kansas, standing in a parched field in central Kansas, and he said to McNeil said to the governor, his name was John Carlin, I'll never forget this. Well, Governor Carlin, as we sit here now, we stand here now in this field, amidst all the parched fields and stuff. How much time do we have before the crisis really strikes? He said, 40 years or something? This is still, part of the lore of the News Hour. We got that story first. But it's the big example of journalism that really getting way ahead of the curve. Anyhow, as Lorraine said, in 1983 we went to an hour. We took on a different look and a different mandate. When we were 30 minutes, the deal was watch your favorite commercial television news program and then turn to us for one story a night for 30 minutes. Then when we did the hour, we became what we considered a substitute. You didn't have to watch anybody but us with our news summary and all that sort of stuff. We're still at it. As Robert McNeil did retire 12 years ago. On most evenings, we're still more of this. For the record, let me let you know also that we're more than just still at it. I'm delighted to tell you that on most evenings, our program now has an audience of 2.5 to 3 million people. That does not include the repeats that some public television stations do. It does not include some of the simulcasting now that some public radio programs, public radio stations do. It does not include the fact that the News Hour is seen in all the nations of the world right now. It just includes our basic audience. The thing you need to know is that audience is larger than any single cable news program or pseudo news program, including O'Reilly, including Google. It's 2 or 3 times higher than programs like The Situation Room, Anderson Cooper, Hardball, Lou Dobbs, those kinds of things. And also, boys and girls, be alert to the fact that our audience is larger than either John Stewart Steve. Neil used to say, well, we don't care about ratings, public broadcasting, the news hour, except when they're very hot. I agree with you, Neil. I hope you don't mind blowing our horn a little bit here. We spend our money in public broadcasting, the news hour, on the program. We don't do it for advertising. So a lot of people don't know that about the fact of the size of our audience. Feel free to spread the word. One thing you should know also for the record about the news hour, we've made a lot of changes, there's no question about it, since we went on the air 32 years ago. Obviously, personnel changes. The whole point of public broadcasting is always, is you must experiment. You must try new things. Things don't work, don't do them anymore. You try some other things. So we've always done that with the news hour. We're still doing it. We're still fooling with things all the time. We have a daily critique. The next morning we critique every night the program of the night before, every time. We do that. We go over what worked, didn't work, etc. We have larger regular meetings of what can we do differently, what is it that we're not handling properly, etc. But there's one thing you should all know, is that the one thing that we don't really have to reinvent the program every day. We don't have to reinvent what it is we're about, why we do what we do. I want to share with you, a few years ago, I was asked by some folks in Aspen if I had any personal guidelines that I used for my practice of journalism and that we use at the news hour, and if I had them, would I mind sharing? Well, here in part is what I sent. My guidelines for practicing journalism. Do nothing I cannot defend. Cover, write, and present every story with the care I would want if the story were about me. Assume there is at least one other side or version to every story. Assume the viewer is as smart and as caring and as good a person as I am. Assume the same about all people on whom I report. Assume personal lives are a private matter until a legitimate turn in the story absolutely mandates otherwise. Carefully separate opinion and analysis from straight news stories and clearly label everything. Do not use anonymous sources or blind quotes except on rare and monumental occasions. No one should ever be allowed to attack another anonymously. And finally, I am not in the entertainment business. End of guidance. Yes, I know there are people who claim our news hour approach to the news is outdated. They argue for a more advocacy form of journalism, where the journalists themselves make judgments about the participants and the ideas or proposals. They proclaim the truth between the competing positions, separate the good from the bad, between all thought and humankind. Let me say for the record to those folks, I believe strongly, and I've always believed strongly, that public television has never been and should never be the place to practice that kind of journalism. The explosion of new information sources elsewhere has been increasingly opinion-driven. There are right-wing shout shows and blogs, there are left-wing shout shows and blogs. They are often overtly and openly designed to generate heat, not light. Some are also, quite frankly, saying they want to turn the news into entertainment. Thus, the obsessions with O.J. and Ricky-type crimes and misdemeanors, disclosures, and trials. I have no problem with any of that. That is their right to do that, and I would defend any news or information organization's right to do most anything short of lying or distorting. I am almost pretty close to being a First Amendment purist. Bad taste and stupidity, as well as self-righteousness and God complexes, occasionally go with the territory of American journalism. But I see no need for all of us to do the same thing. Most particularly in light of the reassuring data that say loud and clear that there are a goodly number of Americans who watch and support what we do and the way we do it. Onward, we say, and onward we will do. Now, journalism's challenges, I believe, are